Hi, it's Llarold, and today I'm going to talk about how to play Protection Warrior in the War Within. This video is going to focus on leveling, dungeons, and delves, since that is the content that will be available during the first few weeks of the expansion. Raids and Mythic Plus dungeons will come along later, and I'll talk about those later. So let's get into it, but first don't forget to like and subscribe. So let's start with leveling. I will be leveling as a Fury Warrior. It is my favorite DPS spec in the game. It has been for almost 20 years now. I just like it. I like it a lot. I know it well. I fell into tanking, to be honest, again, like 19 years ago, but while I do enjoy tanking a lot, it is my area of expertise. My first love was Fury Warrior. Having played all three of the Warrior specs a lot on the beta, I think any of them will work really well while leveling. Arms was super fun and super bursty, and I actually found it much stronger than Fury before all of the balance changes, but those have both buffed Fury and nerfed Arms, and so I think Fury is the better choice for leveling, which is why it's what I'm going to play. Here's my preferred talent setup, and I'm going to walk through some of my talent choices that are a little bit off meta and explain them just to demonstrate that I know ball. So let's go. First off, I'm going to be taking Fast Footwork and Second Wind and Bounding Stride. This is for the standard leveling reasons. Fast Footwork is for move speed. You want move speed while leveling. Second Wind is just really good for healing up in between pulls or kind of giving yourself a bit of a defensive lifeline if you fall low for some reason. Bounding Stride also is good for mobility. Now you have some options here. You could potentially take Pain and Gain, maybe drop Rallying Cry in order to get it. I think that is an option. You could also drop Rallying Cry and just put that point into Overwhelming Rage if you really want more rage cap there. That can work too. If you want more crowd control, you could take Intimidating Shout. That again can work better than Rallying Cry for kind of solo leveling. Alright, now I'm going to talk about some of my choices in the right-hand tree here. Powerful Enrage is the standard choice for Mythic Plus. For raids, it is better for sustained damage. It gives you more Enrage uptime and makes your Enrage do more of a damage increase. Frenzied Enrage, on the other hand, gives you move speed. So if I hit any sort of wall in terms of damage output, I will be swapping out of Frenzied Enrage and the move speed and just taking Powerful Enrage for more damage. Next, Improved Bloodthirst is really good for damage output. It is your better choice for sustained damage, but again, Fresh Meat is really good for just popping back and forth between targets. Every time you bloodthirst a new target, you get Enrage guaranteed. I'm going to be taking that and guaranteeing Enrage uptime, which has good synergy with Frenzied Enrage, giving you more move speed, having permanent Enrage uptime anytime you're in combat. This is really good synergy. Now, because I play Prot primarily, I'm going to mainly just have one-handed weapons to play with, so I'm actually going to be taking Single-Minded Fury as well. That gives you a bunch of damage bonuses for using one-handed weapons and also an extra 5% move speed. So 5% move speed here, 5 here, 10 here. I'm going to be running around. I'm basically going to be a car, just sort of sprinting around at a nice leisurely 30 miles an hour, and that's really what I'm looking forward to as Fury. Now, there are a couple of other talents here. Sudden Death, this is something that's not generally taken in Mythic Plus. Massacre is also not generally taken in Mythic Plus. I'm going to take these while leveling, or at least Sudden Death while leveling, because it can add a big pop of extra damage, which is good for just bursting things down very quickly. Frenzy is something that is usually taken in any sort of sustained damage situations. It adds up to 8% haste. That's really good. The problem is that the buff is reset if you rampage a different target. You're going to be swapping targets all the time while leveling, so Frenzy is super bait while leveling. I think it's really terrible. A really good talent that really stinks for leveling, and people don't realize just how bad it is. So I would not take this for leveling ever. Certainly won't be taking it over some of these talents like Sudden Death and Single-Minded Fury. Other than that, I think the rest of the bottom of the tree is pretty normal. I am taking Anger Management because I want to have more availability on Recklessness and Bladestorm. I just want them cooling down more often, being more available for me to throw at enemies, more than I want my big bursts of damage when I press Recklessness to be, big and bursty. I'm going to be killing guys even with a sort of baby version of Wreck. I would rather just have it available all the time. Now, as for the hero talent tree, I think Mountain Thane is clearly the best option. At level 71, you unlock it, and then at level 72, you can come over and take Crashing Thunder, and that is going to be my first option. Until that point, I'm not going to be using Thunderclap in the main tree. I'm not going to be using it at all. I'll just be using a normal Whirlwind setup, but as soon as you're able to take Crashing Thunder and turn Thunderclap into a Rage Generator, make it do a ton more damage, make it trigger all of the improved Whirlwind and Seismic Reverb and all of that stuff, I am going to be locking in Thunderclap at that point and totally riding with Mountain Thane from there on until the end. As for the row order, I'm going to be going left side row. It has a lot of value adds, just a lot of damage bonuses here. Then I'm going to be going with the right hand side. It gives you bloodthirst damage, rampage damage. It gives you this really valuable defensive bonus, and then another big burst damage talent here. And then the middle talent tree kind of has like a column, I guess, has some utility stuff. Stormbolt hitting extra guys. Does give you some bit of cleave, which is fine. Good bit of rage generation, so definitely something to look forward to, but I think left, right, middle is the approach that I want to go with. Now you can level his arms or prot. I think Slayer is better for arms leveling, and I still think Mountain Thane is best for prot. I like Colossus, it is my favorite of the warrior hero talent trees, but I just kind of think it's the worst one for leveling. Demolish is a big offensive cooldown. I really like it a lot. I think it's very fun and it is good while leveling, but the rest of the talent tree is very sustained damage, defensive value, great for raiding, great for hard-hitting content, challenging stuff, but that's not what leveling is, and it just is not as well suited as Mountain Thane or Slayer, in my opinion. All right, now I want to talk about protection talents that I am going with here for kind of early dungeons and even potentially leveling. And again, it's a lot of the similar stuff. Fast footwork is good for speed. Bounding stride is good for speed. Second wind can be good for keeping your health topped up between pulls, either in dungeons, if you have a healer who's kind of struggling, or just between pulls while leveling. Definitely not something you have to have long term. You can drop that and take Rumbling Earth for a bit more crowd control value, or just Crackling Thunder to make it a little bit easier to hit everything with your Thunderclap. Very, very normal setup to run like this. I'm recommending this just because of the little bit of defensive utility value for Second Wind. I am going back with Thunderous Roar. Thunderous Roar with Uproar really is just kind of the best, simplest approach. You run that with Avatar, and this works very normal. RIP Year of the Spear, it was fun playing around with you for a couple of weeks, but it just didn't working out. In the right-hand tree, this is all pretty much the same setup that people have been running for a really long time in Dragonflight. The only things that have changed are, because your haste values are going to be super, super low, I think Into the Fray is bait, again, early on in the leveling and dungeon process. I think you're going to want to stick with Heavy Repercussions just to guarantee 100% uptime on shield block, make it very, very easy to maintain. Now you can drop Disrupting Shout. It's a really good AoE interrupt kind of group utility value thing, but you can just take Blood Surge instead for a bit more rage. That's pretty much it though. Not really a lot to change in the right hand tree at all from the standard Mythic Plus setup that's been rocking for warriors for over a year now. As for hero talents, again, I think Mountain Thane is the best. Like I said, I'm going to level his Fury, so when I switch over to Prot, I'm going to have all of these talents available, but if I weren't leveling his Fury, if I were leveling his Prot, then I would still go the same way. Left, right, middle. Pretty much the same approach. Now, I like Colossus a lot. I do think it's good, but again, I don't think it's going to compare with Mountain Thane at all for dungeons. Mountain Thane helps with rage generation, thanks to things like Thorim's Might, and also just Shield Slam, cooldown reduction from Burst of Power, lots and lots of value being added, lots of rage generation through, say, Thunder Blast, for example. There's so much rage generation in this tree, and there is none in the Colossus tree. It is all about burst damage, big cooldowns that you layer onto other stuff. I think Colossus will be much better later on in the expansion when you have lots of gear and power to then fuel into that scaling, or maybe if they just add some rage generation into it. But right now, it's not looking so great for early dungeons. Definitely stick with Mountain Thane. Kind of cooler thematically anyways. All right, now let's go over Protection Warrior's abilities. Shield Slam is your main rotational skill. Thunderclap is your secondary rage generator. On my bars, they are 1 and 2. There is a reason for that. Revenge is your main offensive rage spender. Execute is better for single target damage, but it only works when enemies are in execute range, so 20% and below. Thunderclap deals a ton of extra damage while Avatar is active, so much so that it is your core skill in AoE, and your rotation during Avatar will look like Thunderclap, Shield Slam, Thunderclap, Revenge, Thunderclap, something else, and so on. As for defensive skills, you have Shield Block, which you want to maintain at all times. Outside of maybe the first second of a pull when you're still generating rage to cast the initial shield block or just getting it up, you never ever want to let it fall off. Ignore Pain is your other defensive skill. It absorbs 50% of the damage you take while it is active, and it is just basically an absorb shield. Not really any more complicated than that. Now, balancing between spending your rage on Ignore Pain and Revenge or Execute is basically how you demonstrate skill as a protection warrior. You kind of have to figure out how you want to balance those two out, but that's pretty much the skill game of this as a class. The rest of the class is just whack-a-mole with Shield Slam procs. You generate a lot of rage, so you will be able to use both Revenge and Ignore Pain a lot, and that is exactly what you want to do. Finding the balance is really just up to you. Impending Victory is a quick self-heal, and you should use it anytime your health drops low. Now, you have a lot of cooldowns in your kit as a warrior. That's kind of the defining thing of the class anymore. Avatar, Ravager, Demo Shout, Thunderous Roar, and Shield Charge are all big cooldowns. Demolish is also a big cooldown if you are playing Colossus. And they're all kind of simple. You just want to use them pretty much as often as you can, and then layer all the damage bonus cooldowns on first, and hit the damage dealing skills afterward. So the only time I would hold offensive cooldowns on a warrior is if I'm nearing the end of a pull, and I want to have them for the start of the next pull. As for defensive cooldowns, you want to be liberal with Shield Wall. Its cooldown is very short, under a minute, maybe around a minute, but probably under a minute if you're playing well and you're in a sustained situation. The same goes for Spell Reflection. Unless you're holding it to reflect a specific spell, you want to just fire it on cooldown anytime you're taking sustained spell damage. Spell Block is really strong, and you should use it anytime you're taking big spell damage hits that you can't reflect. Last Stand is good as a reactive defensive cooldown, and you kind of want to use it whenever you know you're about to take a big burst of damage, or if you have just suddenly fallen low, bam, quickly Last Stand to not die. Rallying Cry is kind of usable in the same way, although it is on the global cooldown and it's not nearly as much health. I think Last Stand is 30% and Rallying Cry is 10%, so obviously Rallying Cry is not nearly as good of a lifeline, but it is good for helping people stay alive if they drop low, or if you know a big group cooldown is about to come out, or big group damage is about to come out, you could use Rallying Cry to keep everybody alive. Alright, now let's cover how to pull on a Protection Warrior, and it's pretty simple. It kind of fits with the whole philosophy of Warrior being kind of a dum-dum class. You charge in, and you hit Thunderclap. That's kind of the basics. Now, if you have Avatar, you do want to hit that on the way. Mid-charge, you'll hit Avatar, and Thunderclap, and Shield Block, all in the first half a second of the pull. That is really ideal. Charge and Avatar will give you enough rage to Shield Block, so I like to cast that before I'm in melee range. And then I'll use Ravager and Demo Shout to get the damage bonus from Demo Shout active, along with Avatar, then Thunderous Roar and Shield Charge, and then if I'm playing Colossus, I'll follow up with Devastate or Demolish, whatever it's called. If not, I will just hit more Thunderclap and Revenge and just kind of proceed into the standard rotation. If you don't have Avatar up, you can still charge in and use Thunderclap and Revenge. That's usually enough to establish threat, but you can use Challenging Shout if you really need it. In terms of stats, Strength is the most important stat for Protection Warriors, so you just want to try to upgrade your item level whenever possible. But if you are comparing items of the same item level, or you're thinking about enchants and gems, Haste and Crit are your top two options for secondary stats. Haste is definitely your number one. There is some debate depending on gear level. Crit can be better, Verse can be better, Mastery usually is not better, usually it's always the worst, but some combination of Haste and then either Crit or Versatility depending on really whether you're trying to maximize your damage or your defensive value, and either way is pretty good. Alright, let's wrap things up here. I still love Warrior, I always have. It was my first class 20 years ago, almost 20 years ago. It has a special place for me in my heart. It has gotten some significant buffs in the past couple of weeks here, and because of those, it is actually looking like it's going to be a very strong tank at the start of the War Within. And that has me very excited. I cannot wait to play it. It's going to be fun. Alright, that's it. Thanks for watching. Bye.